Chapter 3. When we realize what may be accomplished through concentration, we shall make every conceivable effort to develop this master art, and our persistence, determination, and enthusiasm will know neither pause nor measure. We will purpose positively learn how to concentrate, and therefore will want to know how to proceed, what principles to adopt, and what methods to apply. When we examine the psychology of concentration, we find that it is based upon mental actions that are deeply interested in a certain subject or object. That is, we concentrate naturally and without effort whenever or wherever we are vitally interested. This, then, is the first principle. Be really interested in that which you are to address yourself, and you will give it your undivided attention. The problem, however, is how to become really interested in subjects or objects that do not, on their own account, attract our attention, or that do not on the surface appeal to us in the least. This is the first and possibly the greatest obstacle we have to meet in the development of the concentration. But the solution is very simple, and we proceed upon the fact that everything is interesting from a certain point of view, that everything can attract our attention if permitted to reveal its chief attraction. To the superficial mind, many things may seem useless or uninteresting, but not so to the mind that has learned to think. It is only on the surface or for the commonplace viewpoint that most things may seem unworthy of passing notice, and it is only when looked upon through the eyes of prejudice or ignorance that our associations may repel or produce indifference, or that life and its work may offer slight appeal. The situation changes entirely when we see things as they are, and especially when we seek for the deeper cause of every condition and discover the greater possibility that are waiting back of the scenes everywhere. The most commonplace object in existence, such as a simple rock or a turf, becomes a wonderful world when examined scientifically, and the ordinary duties of life, if examined from all points of view, will reveal opportunities and possibilities that will positively startle the mind. It is certainly true that everything is interesting from a certain point of view, and we may multiply illustrations indefinitely. The universe in all of its realities, life in all of its manifestations, and existence in all of its actions and changes. These things, when looked into with eyes at sea, will prove interesting to a wonderful degree, and frequently fascinating to an amazing degree. Understanding this aspect of the subject, which is the all-important aspect, we may make the following proposition. We concentrate naturally and perfectly when we are vitally interested. Everything is, in its chief attraction, extremely interesting. Therefore we may, by seeking the chief attraction in everything, concentrate naturally and perfectly anywhere, anytime. This is simple and conclusive, provided we find the chief attraction, but here we meet another problem. We may grant that everything is interesting from a certain point of view, but is it possible to find that interesting viewpoint anywhere and on short notice? It is true that we can, in due time, find elements of real interest anywhere, of sufficient interest to attract our undivided attention. But we may not always do so at the moment. Therefore we have another problem to solve, and again, the solution is simple, within easy reach of anyone who will try. It is only necessary at first to proceed upon the conviction that everything is interesting from certain points of view, and to drill that fact into the mind with positive action and depth of thought. A situation will arise that can solve this other problem absolutely. When you convince the mind that everything is interesting from a certain point of view, you establish in the subconscious a natural tendency to be on the alert for this interesting viewpoint. Your mind will, unconsciously and unfailingly, look for the interesting element in everything you meet in life, or that you may take up for consideration. And when the mind is on the alert and keenly looking for the interesting element, the mind is really interested in that subject or object. Vital interest in the situation has sprung up subconsciously without your making the least effort to become interested. So there you have the first and most vital essential for concentration. The importance of this principle is so great and the methods connected with it are so effective that we should emphasize and re-emphasize these things in our minds in every way conceivable. We should think on these things repeatedly, dwell upon this situation with the utmost of faith and confidence, and give special time and thought to the facts involved. There is a tendency in nearly every mind to take natural interest in a few things only, to work and act largely in grooves, and to think of things in a most general and superficial fashion. But real concentration is out of the question in such a state of mind. That is why special attention should be given to the fact under consideration, so that the tendency of indifference may be supplanted by one of the wholehearted interest. In practical life, this is how the plan will work. You are called upon to give attention to something you do not understand, or something that does not appeal to you in the least. You are not interested, and therefore you cannot, at the moment, concentrate properly, or give the matter undivided attention. But you remember the great fact noted in the study, that everything is interesting from a certain point of view. Instantly you become curious to know what the interesting element in the matter at hand might be. You have made your own mind curious, and a curious mind is on the verge of becoming an interested mind. If this be your first attempt in the application of this method, nothing more than a mild interest may arise, and even that might aid you decidedly at the time. But suppose you make use of this method many times every day for weeks and months. Suppose you make it a part of your daily work to impress upon your mind again and again the fact that everything is interesting from a certain point of view. The subconscious will soon receive these impressions and make the fact its very own. Then suppose you are called upon to consider a subject towards which you have been wholly indifferent. But the subconscious has been advised that there are elements of interest everywhere, and that the subconscious never forgets what it has once really learned. Accordingly, the mind will be prompted by powerful impulses from within to seek the interesting elements in the subject before you. And before you are hardly aware of the fact, this subject has become interesting and attractive. Suddenly a keen desire has come over you to look into the subject thoroughly. You want to know. You are vitally interested. You are giving the matter undivided attention. You are concentrated perfectly in that direction. When it becomes a part of your mind to know and feel that there are interesting elements in everything, and that everything, when looked upon with eyes at sea, becomes a wonder world, you develop a permanent faculty for looking into the vital elements in all things. You are interested deeply and permanently in the working and possibility of all aspects of life. You are wonderfully attracted to the real and the true everywhere, and therefore you will instantly, without effort, give your whole attention to anything that you may meet, or that you are called upon to consider. Whatever you think and act, you do so with your whole mind. You concentrate perfectly, not because you are trying to do so, but because you have developed that something in yourself that produces perfect concentration. Chapter 4. To develop this idea farther and secure all possible results, we should make it one of the permanent rules of life to meet everything with a desire to discover its real worth and chief points of interest, and whether the element of interest be found or not. The act of looking for that element will create interest in the mind, thereby producing a certain degree of concentration. Whether we meet the commonplace or the exceptional, this rule should be rigidly observed, and whenever we have moments to spare we should apply the rule definitely to any subject or object at hand, so that the mind may develop a permanent and a powerful tendency in that direction. To illustrate, we may take an ordinary-looking rock and ask ourselves what there is about this rock in which we may become interested. We would ask what the rock is composed of, how many elements in it may contain, how they combine, how they are attracted to each other, and how they happen to hold together. We might proceed asking questions, and we would find that we could ask anywhere from 50 to 100 very interesting and most scientific questions about this very ordinary-looking rock. And every one of these questions would arouse the deepest interest in the mind, because they would be questions that would involve some of the great principles in science. The same method may be applied in connection with any object or any subject we may wish to consider, and in every instance we shall be surprised to find how many points of interest will come forth to attract and even amaze the mind. The truth is that if we are wide awake to the meaning and purpose of everything in existence, we shall not find anything to be commonplace or uninteresting. What appears to be uninteresting appears so simply because we have not taken the time to make an intelligent examination. The moment, however, that we really examine the thing itself and look into its elements, its nature, its quality, its power, its possibility, and its very soul, we shall find so much that is interesting that we might occupy the mind for days, weeks, and months in a deeper and further examination. We shall find nothing to be of greater value as a daily practice than to take up objects or subjects in which we are not actually interested and direct the mind to look for interesting viewpoints, elements or factors in connection with these objects or subjects. We shall be richly rewarded because we will not only find much that is interesting, but we will, through this practice, train the mind to look naturally for that which is of interest everywhere. And we know that there is nothing that adds so much to our fund of knowledge as the happy faculty of being able to look for facts or for the truth everywhere. And the same faculty tends to develop not only intellect, but all the final mental faculties as well. This practice will produce a permanent tendency in the mind to look for the interesting in connection with everything that we may see, hear, or think about. And this tendency will expand and develop the mind, and place us in a position to secure direct or first-hand information from every experience and from every object or subject that we meet on the way. More than this, the same tendency will develop in the mind, the faculty of searching for the chief essentials or the real thing, that invariably exists in the actual life or soul of that which we have come in contact. and it is hardly possible to overestimate the value of such a faculty, knowing as we do that the average mind skims over the surface continually and seldom, if ever, discovers the real, vital principle involved anywhere. When we develop the faculty of finding the real thing, the real truth, the real principle, the real power, the real factors that exist in everything we meet in life, we have gained immensely. Whenever we meet what does not seem interesting, we should proceed at once to examine that particular thing with a view of finding something of interest, and we will find it. And when we have work that does not seem interesting, work upon which we must concentrate in order to do it well, we should take up such work in the same attitude. That is, we should inquire deeply and scientifically as to what there is about such work that is in reality interesting. This question coming up will cause the mind to become interested, and at once concentration will begin. And as we continue this practice, the tendency to look for the interesting everywhere will become second nature. That is, concentration will have become a permanent power in the mind and will act thoroughly and effectively of itself. Wherever the mind may proceed to act, the rule is simple. Look for the interesting, and the mind becomes interested. And wherever the mind is interested, there you concentrate naturally and effectively, provided, of course, that you subconsciously feel that there are interesting elements in everything, and provided further that your mind is keenly alive with a desire to know, to achieve, and to excel. End of chapter.